Thanks, Nikki. That's great.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Michael. I can hear you fine.
All right, good.
Welcome. This is Barbara.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I think Gina's having audio problems, so let me just try to see what's wrong with hers.
Are you guys in different places?
We are. We're doing this from our homes. We're about 30 miles apart.
Oh, gotcha. Am I the only one that has a mic on?
Yes, we just normally turn them off because there's often feedback.
Oh, okay. I tried getting a headset from work. No one had a headset.
It's not, the feedback's not bad, but if two people are talking at the same time, then they'll hear an echo.
For helping us out here today. Oh, I hear it now. Thank you, Peggy, for helping us out today. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Knowledge Sharing Place. And as Peggy said, I'm Tina Schneider, and I'm here with Barbara Talent. I don't know if Barbara can say hi if her mic's on. And Dean Mance, who's usually here with us and helping us out, is actually at his daughter's dance recital, but hopefully he'll be able to join us at the tail end of the show. And we are excited to have Michael Thornton here and his third grade class projects. Hi, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you here. So Michael, just a quick intro here. Michael is a third grade teacher from Meriwether Lewis Elementary in Charlottesville, Virginia. And Barbara and I have been noticing some of the interesting ways in which Mike and his students have used Web 2.0 tools in his classroom. And the reason we asked Mike here today is because we've been noticing that although many teachers seem to be aware now of all the different Web 2.0 tools that are out there, there seems to be still this question of how do we incorporate these tools in a meaningful way with their curriculum, or how do we use these tools in a way that's meaningful for the classroom. So we thought we'd start that conversation by inviting Mike here to share with us some of the ways that he uses these tools, Web 2.0 tools, into his curriculum. So with that, we'll begin. Mike, I don't know if you noticed, but I posted your January blog on our Facebook site because I think that you explained very nicely why you are in teaching today. So I thought maybe you could start out by explaining that blog post to us.
Yeah, I had an interesting time in school. I'm a very active person, and school is not necessarily the right place for me. And so right away, I learned that I just didn't fit into the traditional classroom. Now, as a student, I didn't have much of a voice in helping to determine how I could change that. When I decided I wanted to be a teacher, one of my main goals right away was I want to be a teacher for those kids that, like myself, that didn't have a voice, that were lost in the traditional classroom. Whether they got good grades or not, I didn't get bad grades, but I wasn't happy, I wasn't engaged, and I wasn't into what was going on. So one of the reasons why I wanted to be a teacher was to give those students a voice, and a lot of times they're lost, and I wanted to help them find themselves, which in turn then would help them be better in the classroom.
You said that so nicely in your blog, and I think you really bring up a good point here about the students having a voice and how do you facilitate that, because that's, you know, we're trying to make them leaders in the world, and where are they going to learn that? So I really think that that's something that you should bring out and point out, and I'm so glad you're here to share that with us.
You know, whenever we do something in class, I always try to bring to light the importance of the topic in real life. How is it authentic to what they're actually doing or what they will do? And a good example of this is when the Chilean miners were stuck. That's not a curriculum thing for us, but we watched that, and it was really cool because we got to actually see one of them get rescued. And what I brought up to the kids was, yes, empathize with the miners that are stuck, of course, because of what they're dealing with. But one of the reasons I want you guys to watch this is because you are going to be the person in 10 to 12 years to make the machine or the pod that is going to get the next miners out. And that's a flip of how many students think. And what I try to profess to my kids is that that's how they need to think. They need to be thinking about, I'm going to be the doer. I'm going to be the person that's going to be the next, I'm going to invent the next type of computer, or I'm going to come up with something that's better than a tablet, or whatever the case may be. That enables them to have a voice, which is what we're talking about. And I accept their criticism to me in class, and if we're doing an activity, I listen to what they think. because in the end, we're there for them. I'm not there for myself. I hear myself talk too much as it is. I'm here to listen to them and then try to devise plans and units and studies that fit into what they're trying to do.
You know, I had a conversation with Mike before we did the show, and I happened to catch the kids in the classroom, and I have to tell you, they were so impressive. They had such great energy. They were very confident. Anytime you have kids that are willing to introduce themselves and engage, start a conversation with a stranger, you know you're doing something right. I think that says that you've got kids that are really happy to be there and learning. So from that, I'll ask you this question: since you are now leading the classroom, and I'm sure you've answered this question already, and maybe you want to go into the demo time, but would you say that there's anything different that you've experienced as a student that you're seeing now because of your different approach?
Say that one more time.
So now that you're in the classroom and you are, working with the students the way you wanted to be treated as a student, have you noticed any results that are, what were you noticing in the classroom that's different than what you experienced as a teacher, as a student?
One of the main differences that I like to really push in the classroom is collaboration. One of the reasons why I think collaboration is such a pivotal part of the 21st century classroom, not to sound cliche, but it's because we live in a seriously global community. There's no denying the fact that I can get on the computer and talk to someone right away in China, and my kids do that. And that right there is a big difference. When I was in school, we were in rows. We sat in desks all the time. We studied the same way. We read books. We read the same textbook at the same time. That's not how I do things in my classroom. If I see that there are some students that want to do something one way, while other students want to do something another way, and the end result is getting to where we need to get to, I have no problem with that. In fact, if I did have a problem with that, then I'd have to really sit down and evaluate why I want to be a teacher and what I'm trying to actually teach my kids. Because as adults, we learn really quickly that there's a lot of different ways to find something. There's a lot of different ways to get to the end result. And there's no reason why we shouldn't pass that along to the kids. So that would be a major difference. And then another difference is giving these kids a voice, as we've been talking about, enables them to be much more confident. And a student that maybe traditionally is really, really quiet and doesn't want to talk, maybe is a little worried about answering questions in class, is much more liable to want to raise their hand or shout out an answer. And to me, that is a beautiful thing, because I was that kid that got good grades but didn't raise my hand very much because I didn't want to get made fun of for some reason, or the teacher to say something I didn't like, because I didn't feel like I had any type of a voice in the classroom. So to me, the voice is the key, because with the voice comes confidence, and with confidence comes engagement, and with engagement comes investment, or vice versa.
So we have a question here from Maureen, and I think it's probably a big topic. I don't know if you can cover it now. I think maybe we should go to the demo first. But the question was, how do you teach or facilitate collaboration? And then also, I hear an echo there. I think your mic's on. Okay. And then also, when the kids are learning taking an assignment and doing it in different ways, and the end result meets what it is that you're trying to get them to meet, whether it's through a test or what. How has that been working for you? Have the kids been learning what you need them to learn at the same level, even though they're taking a different approach?
Yes. Now that's a kind of a difficult question, because not all kids are the result. You have to level the results on the kid. So even though you have even though we all have standards that we're supposed to go by, and of course you follow those standards, and I have high expectations for all my kids, but I also understand that even though the end result might be reached for all of them, they're still going to reach it slightly different ways, and it might not be the same for all of them, the actual result. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I appreciate the differences in the result that they do come up with. I'll give you an example. Earlier about 2 months ago, I decided to do independent research projects because one of the things that the standards that we have to do are kids can do their own research, they can write up reports and things of that nature. So I told them they can research any topic they want to research. And I have iPods in my room, so they used iPods and they went through and they researched. I had students doing Bob Marley, I had students doing the Gila Monster, and so forth, the whole range. And their final project was a poster and a presentation. Now, some of the posters were better than some of the others, some of the presentations were better than some of the others, but the end result was the same in the sense they all did what they were supposed to do. They all followed the rubric, but they all did it completely different. And they got to choose, so there's their voice, they got to choose what they really wanted to study. And they all did fabulous jobs. And what's really awesome about that story is the day that they did their presentations, I had 3 students go home that night, coordinate with parents so they could meet each other. They got together at one of their houses and then did a whole separate project that wasn't even related to anything that they were asked to do. Brought it in the next day. It was a huge poster with all this research and wanted to present it to the class. And to me, that speaks louder than any test, anything that I could do, because that tells me that I've touched them, that they're engaged, and they want to do more than what's even being asked of them.
Michael, I think Peggy says it right. She says that's a teacher's dream. And I think, yeah, when you have kids, they're taking the extra mile to take what you've just taught them and say, okay, I want to do more. That's what you hope for. And that's really a great story. And I would like to get into your binders because I want you to talk about what these kids are doing, because some of the things that they're doing I can't even do, and these guys are in 3rd grade, so I'd love for you to start sharing that if you want to start setting up and opening up your binder. So what Michael's going to do is launch his binder for this presentation, and everyone's going to get the link so they can take a look at it later. I don't think Michael's going to have time to go through everything, but you can certainly look through it at your own leisure and take a look at the projects that the kids have put together. Oh, that came up pretty quickly. Let me know when you're ready, Michael.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of just go through a little bit, and because of time, obviously I can't, as Tina said, I can't get through all of it, but I'm going to definitely start with the things that I actually I have my students do because they want to do it, but I'm going to start with those and kind of work my way across the tabs. This is one I'm most proud of, and it fits in really well with this because Tina and Barbara are as responsible as I am. But when I first started using Livebinders, I made 2 myself, and I had the kids do them, and they loved them. They thought they were really cool, and I, was putting games in them and all this stuff. And then I started thinking, well, why would I be the one to put those together if the students are the ones that are going to use them? And that's a real big issue I have, is any technology I have in the class or any type of Web 2.0 tool I use, I teach the kids how to use, because in the end, why shouldn't I? They should be using them because it's what I'm asking them to use to learn. So why not teach them how to actually do it themselves? So I came up with this idea of student textbooks. My kids don't like to read the textbooks, and part of that is the textbooks are outdated. I'm not an anti-textbook person. We use textbooks, some in class, but my students, we had actually analyzed this. If you were going to use a textbook from 1987, or a website that's updated daily, which one seems to be a more responsible choice for current information? And that's something my kids talked about. So it was a great learning experience for me, because if they're able to articulate that, then they're ready to try something different. And so what I decided to do was start to let them put their own Livebinders together. Now, at first I was a little thrown off because I wasn't trying to do that, because they don't have email addresses, so they couldn't actually set up an account. So what I ended up doing, and I'll go to this first one here, what I ended up doing was setting up a Google Doc, and I put it into my portal. And what I would do then is the kids the students would get together. They usually had a partner. They would find a website that they liked. They would copy and paste it into the Google Doc. From there, together, we would put it into a Livebinder. So we would go to the computer lab. We'd spend about an hour or so, and they'd find websites. So I'm going to go to this first one here. Sorry, that's my dog. I don't know if you can hear him barking. But so this is one that we recently did on alternative energy. And they found each and every one of these sites. And the reason why it works so well is because they've invested their time into their own learning. And the Wikipedia is a great one, because we've actually debated if Wikipedia is a good site or not, because we've talked about the fact that people can go in there if they have accounts and change the information. But they still consider it okay, because they know that people are actually watching to check to make sure that the right information is in there. So I can't go through this whole thing, but they have learned how to actually put a Livebinder together. And I should go back a little bit. Before we actually do this, we actually take our curriculum, we look over the standards for certain units. We analyze the standards for our units. In this case, this was energy. So we looked at the standards of what they're actually expected to know. We analyze those together as a class. A lot of times they write down the main ideas of each of the essential knowledge, and they have that knowledge before they actually go to the lab to start making these binders. So they know the ultimate goal. We've talked about the ultimate goal. I think the only thing that I'm doing that's different is that I'm saying, why not give them a chance to actually have a part of making what they're going to use to study. So here's one on ancient Greece. We'd already done the unit. We went to the computer lab, and then they put this together on a way to review the week before we had our test. You will see a lot of games because they are 8, 9 years old. But you also see a lot of information, valuable information that they think is important. And I think that's the key is again, and I don't want to keep harping on the same thing, but again, it's what they think. That's so lacking in schools even today that it's really kind of sad, because the kids need to be able to say what they want to do and want to be a part of in order for them to really have an investment in their own learning. And that doesn't mean grades. That means just learning. Because the bottom line is we want them to learn. We're not wanting them to get all A's. We want them to learn.
So Michael, I just want to add, go ahead. I just want to say that I think when I saw your tab on student textbooks, I thought, wow, that really crystallizes what needs to be done with students and letting them be, student-driven learners. Because if you think about it, the traditional way is we enforce what we say is right, and the kids just have to figure that out and learn it. And to be able to call it student textbooks, wow, I mean, that just opens up a whole set of discussions that I think is really powerful for learning. And the other thing I wanted to say was you talked about actually going over the standards with the kids. I mean, these guys are 8 or 9 years old, and you're showing them what the standards are, what they're expected to learn, and let them analyze it with you. I think that is probably where you start leveling the playing field, where the kids feel like, okay, here's what I need to know, and here's why, and I'm going to be a part of this process. I think that's pretty powerful too. And that's all I wanted to say.
You know, I appreciate that. And I think, again, in going back to the textbooks, we actually took, and this was because of one of the administrators in my county, she sent me this idea that I should have my kids actually look at the standards for which the county chooses textbooks. There's a whole section on, you know, how they choose a textbook, the evaluative process of going through one. And I actually took a group of my kids, and we sat down together and we went through that list. And then we went to our textbooks, our actual physical textbooks, and we were going through that list with the textbooks that we had, and they were finding all these things that they didn't think correlated with the actual standards. So this was going along the whole process as we were actually making these textbooks, is that they really are understanding the idea that maybe physical, tangible textbooks aren't as reliable and beneficial to them as something that they can create themselves, and also is adaptable. A Livebinder, what they've made, can be changed at all times, and you can't do that with a textbook. And it needs to be done because kids want things to change. They want things to be able to adapt because they're adapting, and they like the idea that things should be changeable. It's a big deal to them. It's a big conversation that we had, was the idea that they thought if something new comes out, you should be able to go right away and say, well, this isn't right anymore, so we need to change that, or this was right, but now we know more. So now that we know more, let's fill that in, and you can't do that with a textbook. Uh-oh. I think I made.
Did you minimize it, or did you close it?
Here we go. Can you see it still?
Not yet.
Sorry. Is it not there?
No, I don't see it. I don't think anybody else can.
All right, hold on a second. Let me pull it back up. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay, there it is.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to keep going through the tab. So here are some other creations, I like to say, that my students have actually made. And I know we got to move kind of quick because it's already 8:30, but I'm really proud of this one. One of the things that I've really tried pushing the last 2 years is letting my students be involved in the assessment of school. A lot of times I feel like if they are able to put their heads around writing questions, knowing the answers, and testing each other, then they're really demonstrating their understanding of what it is that's expected of them. So I taught my kids how to use Google Form. And again, they don't have email addresses, so I've had to, I set this up myself, and then they go to the computers and use it. But this is a binder of different quizzes that they put together with when we were studying cycles. And they're not perfect. And if you look through them, there are mistakes. There probably could be some spelling mistakes. There probably could be things that aren't capitalized. I'm looking right now. But that's not really the purpose of it. The purpose of it was for them to really be able to articulate their understanding. So I got to see, yes, A, they understand the content, B, what they need to work on when it comes to writing sentences, which is important for me, and C, they were engaged in what they were doing. They absolutely loved doing this. And this was cool because I sent this out on Twitter, and we had people from Australia answering it, and they love it when their stuff gets sent out and people from all over the country or world are responding to what they have done. But these are great quizzes. I'm going to use these next year with my next year's class, and it was really a fun activity for them. It took a little bit of time, but to me this is something that's worth a little extra time because they got a lot from it and they learned a lot from it. And so if I go back to that tab,
I love that that the kids could create forms in Google Docs. So imagine these kids now going into high school and they can create their own quizzes and tests as they're preparing for, for studying other subjects. I mean, they are now going to be using tools like this to help themselves, and they can share it with friends. I mean, the possibilities are endless, but, I used to have to write them down, and I'd be trying to study for something. And now they can, to be able to do that online and refer to it later or adapt it later, it's a great tool. What a great skill to have.
The limitation, though, is, again, this email. It's a real bothersome thing for me, because kids not having email accounts does kind of hinder the process, because if you think about it, if they all had email accounts, they could be doing this on their own without even me instigating it. And I guarantee you, at least from my students, and I think I would venture to say most students given a voice would do this stuff on their own because they want to. They just want an avenue to do it.
Well, we found out something from our last podcast, and we should tell you, I could tell you about this later, but if Google has a way that if you have a Gmail account, Michael, and you put a plus sign with the student's name on it, then they can sign up using your email. It's really because they don't want to be having the kids contacted from other, from other companies and stuff. So that's the way you get around it, and I can talk to you about that later.
Yeah, I would love to hear that.
Trick. Yeah, it's in our tips and tricks binder, I think. I'm not sure, but I'll get that to you later.
You guys will be happy to know that I do have a couple students with emails, and one student came to me this morning, just happened to be this morning when this is going on, and said, "Guess what, Mr. T?" And I was like, "What's up?" He said he started his own Livebinder account, and last night started putting together a Livebinder on his own with math games, and he's going to use it. I said, well, that's really cool. What are you doing, like games and stuff? He said, yeah, but I'm going to use it to help review for our SOL test in 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's amazing.
It really blew me away. But again,
talk about pre-planning.
But they want, like, again, they want to do this. They just need someone to help them, give them a chance to try it. So I'm going to keep moving along here. This is a Prezi. My kids have learned, I can't say that they probably could put a Prezi together by themselves at this point, but they understand how a Prezi works. And this was a Prezi that we did together. I was going to do a Venn diagram, but I said, why not just do a Venn diagram on a Prezi together and go through differences between rules and laws. But they love Prezi because it's so interactive to them. And I use Prezi in a lot of different ways. I can use it to do quizzes. I can use it as review. But Prezi is a great tool. If you don't have an account, I'd say definitely sign up for one and try it out, because it really changes the whole perspective of a presentation. It's very neat. And this is actually one that my kids this is from last year's class actually. It's not pulling up, but they actually did make this. I was just the navigator. I was the driver, basically. They did everything in this one themselves. They found the pictures. They decided on all of the different parts that they wanted to put together. And I kind of just drove the computer as they told me what to do. They were a little commanding, but I took it. They put the whole thing together, and it was perfect. It was a really great review. This is actually kind of neat because then the other third grade classes that are in our school use this as a review before the final test, which was neat. So I'm gonna keep moving along here. This is one I'm really proud of. My kids have a Twitter account, and that's worked out really, really well. I kind of built my own Twitter account first, became familiar with a lot of people, and then after that decided to do a class account, knowing that now I have people that will respond. So we were studying simple machines. This is really a great story. And a question came up from one of my students and myself was, would a straw be an example of one of the 6 simple machines? So we debated that in class. and there was multiple ideas about if it was or not. But in any case, they were like, send it out on Twitter, Mr. T. And I said, okay. So I sent it out onto Twitter. And it really led to a huge debate with scientists, with educationalists, with all across the spectrum. Artists got into the debate. Well, so many people were responding that we ended up making a Google Doc, and the kids loved it. And it's definitely worth going through and looking at, because really this is people from all over the world that responded to my kids' question on if a straw would be an example of a simple machine. If there's any reason to do this stuff, to do Web 2.0, this is a prime example. When kids see that what they are doing matters to someone in Asia or someone in California or wherever the case may be, they understand real quick that what I'm doing matters and what I'm doing has purpose, and nothing else can do that. Nothing I can say can bring that out as much as an example like this, because they see it and they actually get to feel a response. And it was really an amazing experience. Here we got the New York Hall of Science responded. Actually, most of their staff responded to the question. I mean, it goes on and on. Ira's in here, at least he was, and he had a good part of helping put this together. This Today's Meet is another great site. If you guys, it basically allows you to just make a chat room, and you can keep it for a couple hours, you can keep it for a day, you can keep it for a year, a week, whatever. This is one I actually did with a class in Canada where they were studying communities, and we had already studied communities. So I asked their teacher to give us their curriculum. She sent me her curriculum. My class and I, we went over what they're expected to know. It was kind of similar to what we were expected to know. There was differences, but we went over their curriculum, and then I had my class devise and create questions that tested them on what they were expected to know. Their class was first graders and some second graders. It's a mixed class. But this is really great. And here you have kids saying, "Hi, I'm Alex." That's not from my class. That was from the Canadian class. But I mean, here we actually have two different countries communicating in real time about the topic that both places, even though they're 1,000 miles away from each other, are studying. And it was a really cool experience for my kids, and I hope to do that again. Actually, I've been talking with that teacher again, so I think we'll probably be doing something again. All right. I'm going to keep going across here. At this point, these are just some of the prezzies. I'm not going to go through all this. These are some of the things that I have actually done.
Michael, I think we lost your mic if you're still talking. It must be a big presentation that it's still loading and slowing down your machine. Can anybody else hear me? Okay. So he's probably stuck and waiting for this. Oh, there we go. He's probably going to restart all over again. Okay, he must have shut down and restarted.
I think we should let Ira talk a little bit more about some of these things, since he's been involved in this too.
Hi, Ira. Do you have a microphone?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Ira.
Yeah. Hi, Ira.
Hi. I'll try to do a little fill-in until Michael comes back on. I mean, his classroom from the very first time I saw it was just one incredibly exciting place. And one of the things that I just want to express is that whatever the technology Michael uses in his class. And the reason I linked that website with that picture is, one of the things we talked about in his room when I first met him was letting the kids draw with whiteboard pens on the floor, which sort of looked like a whiteboard to me. It turned out that worked. So he lets kids do whatever, whatever allows them to create and to work with things. But there are kids always with paper. There are kids drawing on the desks, on the floor. There are kids with laptops. There are kids with iPod touches. There are kids at the interactive whiteboard. He brings all of these things in, and he makes, I think, and I said in the chat room, that what I see kids learning in his classroom is not just content, but process and tool use at the same time. And it's so powerful to see. And it's just, and one of the things that, is he the only teacher at the school doing these things? He has become a leader as a young teacher in a school environment that really sort of values. I was doing a webinar just last night with his superintendent and talking about how we're working on a system there to value, knowledge without title, without necessarily credentials, but to value knowledge as a learning community. And Michael has become a leader of sort of young teachers, not just in his elementary school, but throughout his division. And through Twitter, I think, throughout sort of the country and the world, he's connected to people in a really big way. So he is part of a group of young teachers who I watch talk all the time on Twitter, sort of all through the night, discussing things, spreading ideas out, gaining things. And I think he's back in now, so we'll turn it back to him.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, Michael, you're back.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm not sure what took place, but let me pull. Can you see my Livebinder or?
No, we can't see it right now.
All right. Okay. All right. You see it?
Yes, there it is.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened. Sorry. It just took me off. Okay. And then so I use Google Form in the classroom all the time. So I use it. I just did a couple of these. These are just basic quizzes that I'll put together for the kids. I'll use it, as we're reading something. I'll use it as a pre-assessment, like this punctuation test. I'll use it as exit slips, which is great. It's a great, easy way. They actually can do this on their iPod. So what I do is I'll take the link and I'll put it into my portal. The kids then go to, they have their iPod. They go to my portal with their iPod, and quickly they can do this, and they learn how to do this stuff so quickly that this exit slip, which was probably about 5 questions or 4 questions, they would do in 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, and it'd be done, and we'd be ready to move on to the next thing. Here's one.
Who came up with the exit slip concept?
Who came up with it?
Yeah, is that something that people, is that what you do in the class normally? It just sounds so novel. I like that.
I do it quite a lot. It's a good way to just get a good grasp on what they've picked up and what they haven't picked up. And I use it, most of the time I use it as a way to know if what I need to do more of with who. I don't do it as much as I probably should. I do a lot of informal assessments. Kids have enough tests as it is. So unless they're actually a part of the creation of their own tests, I try to stick away from them too much because they don't need to be bogged down any more than what they already are with assessments. But an exit slip is a great way to analyze what they're picking up and what they're not picking up. With my math group, I do it quite a lot just because in math we can move so quick to keep up. And lastly, I guess I'll just show my portal. This is an example of my portal. You'll see on there Edmodo. We do work with Edmodo, and earlier this year actually I did we were reading a book together as a class, and I invited the parents. So I had parents actually sign up to Edmodo too. I gave them the code, and they were part of our book club. And it didn't work out as well as I thought, but this was the first go-around. But my expectation is that I'm going to continue to do this year to year, and I'm going to have more and more parents sign up and actually start asking questions to the kids. They did read the book though, which was really neat. One or two of them asked questions to the students. But it was really cool for the kids to see that their parents were involved in what they were doing. I'm lucky where I work at a school where that's pretty common, but it was neat to have them in that environment where they were a part of what they were reading and what they're studying, and they got to see it. And I'm really big on transparency like that. I think it's important for the parents and for anyone to see what you're doing. And the kids like it. The kids want it to be transparent because they want people to see what they're doing in class. They want to share their work. So they're always all about me sending stuff off. I'm going to hit on this real quick if I can, just so you can see. Hopefully this will pull up. Yeah. Okay, so this is an example of what I was talking about with the student textbooks. These are all the websites that they put together. This is for the Energy One websites textbook that we looked at previously. And actually, below, in this instance, I had them give me a reason of why they thought this particular site was valuable with their learning. So as you can see there, they put reasons as to why. They hadn't, some of them I think didn't quite finish. They did the best they could do with the time that we had. But they actually were analyzing why a site was important, and they were then typing it down underneath. It was good for me to see why they were choosing what they were choosing and how it fit into what they actually are expected to know. I love this one right here. I chose this site because it has many different types of renewable energy in one place, which is true. If we were studying something and we were supposed to know about different types of renewable energy, of course you're going to want to go to one site that has that different information in one place. So they really do a good job of really thinking about why something is important, but then also the fact that it just needs to be fun for them. And you can see right here, it has a story, and the games are fun. And one of the students, sometimes they would ask me, like, is that okay if I just say it's fun? I was like, absolutely. School should be fun, so learning should be fun. So if that's the reason why you chose a particular site, by all means, that's what you need to write. I guess that's about it. I'm ready to take some questions if you guys want to ask some questions.
Okay, I don't know if Barbara, if you've been keeping track of Peggy, but maybe if anybody wants to speak up and just use your microphone. Peggy asks, is Michael the only teacher at his school doing these things? That's a good question.
That is a good question. I'm trying to push what I'm doing out in my school. I've done a couple faculty meetings for the faculty about how to use some of the web tools and also my iPods that I have. You know, it takes a level of trust and risk that some people are not as willing to go as far as I go. I pretty much will try anything, and I'm okay with it not working. And that's one of the first things I told the kids this year. I said, you know what, we're going to try things. Some are going to work, some are not going to work. And guess what? It's awesome for you to see that they don't work, because that's just part of life. And we're not going to cry over it. We're not going to sulk. We're just going to move on and say, hey, let's try this then, because this didn't work. There are some teachers. I'm happy to say that there's about 12 teachers now that are on Twitter. And I like to think that I'm a part of that, because I really have talked about the successes that I have had when it comes to Twitter. I mean, Twitter is just a big place to get great resources and just have a great learning network. So not many are doing as much as I'm doing, but I'm definitely trying to push towards doing more.
Peggy asked if the kids had to get parent permission to use Twitter.
They not with Twitter, because Twitter doesn't involve their actual names or their face of any sort. So no. Now, when I had to do for Edmodo, I had to fill out a cloud form that said that they were allowed to do it. So basically, we have a generic one that the county has. I kind of adapted it for my purpose and sent it to the parents, telling them that what Edmodo was and how it was going to be used, and they had to return it if they were going to be allowed to use it. But Twitter, no, because it doesn't involve their names or with their faces. So it's a good question.
So I don't know if anybody else has any questions, but a takeaway here is, what's your approach when you look at a tool? Because I know many teachers, again, see all these, they see the Prezi, they see the Google Docs and all these different Web 2.0 tools, and I'm sure they're trying to understand how do I use it effectively that I'm getting what I need to get done. So you must have some approach that you have with a piece of technology and how to make it engaging for the kids and yet at the same time meaningful, right? Like the quizzes for the kids and all that stuff, and even the presentations become learning reference guides. So do you have something that you can share with others about that when they're looking at different tools they want to attempt at trying to use in the classroom?
My best advice for that is just be willing to take the risk and just throw yourself into it. Some of the things I don't know how to use right away, and I've gotten help, and it's okay. And I'm one of those people that's willing just to go out and ask for help. If I don't know something and I want to know it, I'm going to ask for help, and I'm going to research it until I feel like I know how to do it. And I do that because I think, if anything, this binder really demonstrates that this is something that kids want. And we, as educators, have to kind of get out of our own little box and say, this isn't really about us. This is not about me. This is about the kids and knowing what the kids need, want, and that's how I kind of present it. So if there's something that I don't know how to do, and I feel like it really is something that they're going to want to know how to do and they're going to want to use in the classroom, then I'm going to take the time to try to figure it out. And what's really cool is not all the time do I have to do it all by myself. It's a learning process that I do with my students. For example, I just learned how to use Scratch. I had a high school teacher in our district come with 3 of his high school students, and he came to my class and he taught my kids how to use Scratch. Scratch is for those that don't know, Scratch is an online gaming system. Basically, you can make little instructional games, and you have to learn a little bit about the programming. Well, I'm not a programmer. I didn't follow everything he was doing, to be honest with you, but I knew some of my kids would, and I knew that they'd figure out ways to use it in the classroom to learn and to help their students, help the fellow students learn. And of course, I had students that left that night, downloaded the program on their computer, and made actual Scratch games that same night. And I do have some doing it since then. So I guess the answer to your question is, I just kind of throw myself in because I know that the kids want it. And if I don't understand it, I'll research it, but I'll also just let the kids know, hey, I'm having trouble with this. Do one of you guys remember how to do this, or can one of you guys help me with that? Because they're amazing. They know how to do this stuff. It's intrinsic to them. They know how to do it.
So I know we're running out of time here, so I would say that biggest giveaway here from you, Michael, is that involve the kids in the process. I mean, it sounds like transparency is really important. It gets them to feel confident. It gets them to know that you're listening to them, and that everybody's got to, participate, because everybody knows what's going on. And I think if you take that approach, it seems to be that then the possibilities are endless. And I don't know if anybody else sees it that way, but that's
no, I would agree that that's kind of how I look at things. Is that it's not me and the kids, it's us. And if I'm true to that, then I have to be true to that about everything in the classroom when it comes to how we're going to design the classroom. My kids have helped design my classroom, to what we're actually, how we're going to learn something. And in the long run, I think they're learning skills, lifelong learning skills. They're not just learning about ancient Greece. They're learning lifelong learning skills. And I think it's more valuable than I can put into words, really.
Yeah, I think you said it very nicely there. I mean, these kids are entering the world, and they've got to have these skills. You're right. It's not just about learning Greece. It's about all the process of learning about Greece. So, Michael, I want to thank you for joining us today. It was a wonderful presentation. It really, you had some really insightful things, I think, for everybody, and some great takeaways. And I hope to have you back on the show again.
Can I say one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
I see that Natalie, there's a Natalie on here. Well, one of my students is named Natalie, and she told me she was going to come on. I'm wondering if that's actually her, or if that is a different Natalie. I don't know how to...
Let's find out. Natalie, if you don't have a microphone, can you type in? Yes, this is me from your class. Oh, well, we got to get you on.
That's one of my students right there.
Hi, Natalie. Do you want to add anything to the presentation from Mr. T?
Hi.
Well, it's so great. It's great to see you here. I really love your class. That's great. So everyone,
that's really cool. That's cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Natalie, we'll have to have you on again.
I know we're out of time, so thank you very, very much, Tina and Barbara and Dean. I appreciate it.
It was wonderful, Michael, and I'll talk to you soon. So everyone, usually Dean does the concluding remarks. I just want to thank everyone for coming and joining us on the Knowledge Sharing Place. We had a great discussion with Michael Thornton from Meriwether Lewis Elementary. He shared with us what he's doing with his third graders. And if any of you are looking for professional development credit, there is a link here where you can fill out our survey and form and get your certificate. And as promised, we have the link here for the binder. I think Barbara already put that in the chat, but you can take a look at Michael's binder and all the projects from his students, including Natalie. I'm sure she's got some binders in there. And with that, we'll wish everyone a good evening and have a great rest of the end of the semester. Good night, everyone. And be sure to